Tonight we're here. So tonight we're here to talk about raising £1 million for the African diaspora community in Britain. I'm here with Dr. Jude Joseph, and what we're going to discuss is the state of our union, where we are right now within the COVID-19 legislation, and what we need to do to move forward. So I just want to introduce Dr. Jude and tell us a little bit about what sparked the initiative.
Pleasure. Always good to have your company. What sparked the initiative? Coronavirus.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, sitting down thinking, like everyone seems to be using this word, unprecedented times we're in, and just what are we doing as a community to deal with the various situations that we were finding ourselves in with job loss, people being isolated at home, etc., and deaths and so on. So incidentally, at the same time, I came across Tom Moore, the elderly that was raising money for the NHS.
Yeah.
And I saw that he was able to raise 20 million at the time, 20 million, walking up and down, he's trying to do 100 laps to coincide with his 100th birthday.
Yeah.
And at the time he had raised about 20 million pounds. I mean, today I think it's over 30 million now.
Yeah, it was 29 the last time I looked.
I saw it was 31 at one point.
Yeah.
So I was thinking to myself, if he can do that by himself, how can we as a community, how is it for us to have a challenge?
Yeah.
Not 20 million, not 30 million, but 1 million.
1 million.
Yeah. And I thought this is doable.
Yeah.
If we all kind of came together and put our, efforts together, and you're talking about everybody raising or donating £1. That's how it all kind of came about. So I was like, let me put it to the community. Let's see if we can get going. And of course, the momentum started to build from there.
And I think it would be a damning indictment of our community if a 100-year-old man can raise 29, 30 million, and we can't raise one amongst the brightest and best of our community, because that's who we're calling on.
That's right.
We're calling on our influencers. We're calling on our entertainers. We're calling on our intellectuals, our economists, our policy writers in following up and setting the infrastructures. So let's get into it. And before we start, I just want to read something to frame it.
Sure.
And this is something that I stumbled on and I think is indicative of our community. There was an important job to be done, and everybody was sure that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did do it. Somebody got angry because it was a job anybody could have done, but nobody thought to do it. Everybody thought anybody could have done it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do it. It ended up that everybody blamed somebody and nobody did what anybody could have done. The story may be confusing. The message is simple. We don't accomplish within our community. It's a story that plays out often in organizations, companies, and in teams, anywhere where there's a culture of no accountability. And it happens that our community is one where there's no accountability. We can look at county lines. We can look at education when we're saying, should Black history be taught all year round? Well, Black history is our responsibility to teach.
Absolutely.
If we take our responsibility as parents. So there's always somebody else and there's always something else that should be there to do what any of us could be responsible for.
Absolutely. That's so appropriate. It's like when you're pointing the finger, one finger's pointing that way.
And 3 pointing
back at you.
Yeah.
Right.
So we want to circumvent that now because in 2020, we are surrounded by information. We're surrounded by skill sets. If Marcus Garvey built an organization that with a team employed 1,000 in the same conditions, in the worst depression in the United States history. 1,000 employees in Harlem, from dry cleaners through bakers, through investment companies, you name every area of life. As my brother Daryl from Sable Ascent said, if we consume it, we need to produce it.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, tell us a little bit about your outline, and I've got the numbers in front of me, which we know will change slightly across the areas of economics, justice, health, media, and education to lay infrastructure for us to have self-determination. Because a lot of people may not be clear about what the £1 million is for.
Sure.
Yeah.
As I've said on a number of shows I've been on, the £1 million is actually quite a small amount of money.
Very.
I know for some people, when they hear £1 million, it sounds like a lot of money.
It's a personal accomplishment.
Exactly. Yeah. It's one to see, can we come together as a community and achieve this? And what we've said, and I will continue to emphasize, is that we have, as you've just said, experts within our community, people that are experts in finances, people that have got banking experience. So what we would be able to do once we get that initial step or that start of raising that money, the thing is, I think it's important for people to realize that we haven't got it yet. This is the challenge. So people already, I mean, it's phenomenal how many people are calling asking for help, and can we start to support them? We've got people calling from Africa, Sierra Leone, and people over in the UK as well. And it's kind of disappointing, to say the least, that we're not able to just help them straight away. So the first thing is, how long will it take us to do this? We could do it in 1 hour.
Literally.
We could do it in 1 week. We can do it in 1 month. So when people say, okay, when are we going to get the £1 million? I think that question is, have you donated your £1? That's what you've got to firstly say to yourself.
Absolutely.
And once we get that, then going back to your question, our experts in finances, along with other expertise, will then plan how. We've obviously got ideas, and we've budgeted. If you go on our website, I mean, you can see that we've broken it down. I'm sure you'll be able to reiterate that. But we've actually got the figures and allocated them to the main areas, as you say, economics being one of those, because economics is the crippling factor, because we're disproportionately for us.
Absolutely.
Yes, we're disproportionately represented in all of these areas, whether you want to look at economics, whether it's finance, housing, education, name it, across the board, we're underrepresented when it comes to the mainstream. So we have to take ownership of basically looking after ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so that's the first step that we need to achieve, raising the money, and then sit down with the experts, because everybody tries, well, a lot of people in our community try and be an expert in everything.
Absolutely.
But it's important that we
stay.
It does not work. Stay in your lane and contribute what you're good at doing to the best of your ability. So the financial people will be the ones that will then guide how we move forward from once we've raised the money, although we have our own ideas to cover the major areas.
And just to put it in context, what it actually does, it's like when they had the Cobra meeting, and COVID-19 was actually released, and we were being warned the schools were going to close down and we were moving into that area, all community representatives came forward to say what their policy was on their community. We were actually the only community not represented. So, for instance, if you're in a large Muslim community, the mosque is going to write a letter to the school to say that we don't want pork served at lunch. Now that is a dietary policy within an educational institute, but we don't have any policies when it comes to our children's education. So we actually will form our policies out of this, and therefore establish the infrastructures that we need as a community. Because currently we have nothing, which is why we're laughed at. And the fact that we're laughed at is why we're on the bottom of every measurable metric and reliant on other people to do exactly what we need to do, because we failed to accomplish and put those things in place.
Absolutely. I mean, in a way, it's good because we're starting from a blank page.
Beautiful.
So we can actually now put in place the right structure and measures. Obviously, we've already got people within the community who we would vet as a professional community. Obviously, we know that ADPAC is doing its work in a particular area.
Yeah.
We've got other people in finance. We've got people in education. So you're right. It is sad that we don't have representation.
Yeah.
You know, on the mainstream playing field, so that we can actually put our policies forward. And this is what I'm saying that we need to start looking into, because if we don't do it, who's going to do it?
Yeah.
You know, and we have to look at life beyond COVID-19. This has been a wake-up call, I would say, for us to realize, you know, we've been talking about these things for years, and now is the time to put it in place. We really don't have any more time to be talking about things.
No.
We've got to really start implementing now,
Yeah.
bringing the professionals together and actually just get on with the work.
And there's a reason for that. It may have gone by a lot of us through all of the fear and conflicting information that people may be reading.
Right.
We are actually in police state legislation, and they are testing facial recognition police drones
That's right.
at night. So as we emerge from this, we actually emerge into a dystopian future that we're watching on Netflix.
That's right.
And if we're the most economically challenged community with no institutions, no policy for dealing with health, and it comes to forcibly vaccinating people, where do we stand?
Exactly.
So we need a health policy as a community, in that you will have that conversation with an institution at an institutional level. Based on what our health professionals have put together and created in policy. But as it stands, we're the most vulnerable community in the country.
Absolutely.
Because we got no representation whatsoever. And that representation costs money. Because these experts, for all of the things that we want, that we don't see value in, when we're in trouble,
That's right.
they're the things that we need.
That's right.
We'll ask, so if we are murdered by a particular community and they're released, you can have a private prosecution where you would lay down a £10,000 retainer to a barrister's firm. We're not even in a position to do that.
This is what's so...
We're fundraising to raise 10 grand to put down a private prosecution when one of our children is murdered. Institutions will have all of these vehicles in place to take advantage of.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, what you're saying is so paramount, because education. If we don't have our own school, and, you know, the government or a policy is put in place to say every child that goes back to school after the lockdown must be vaccinated, what then happens? Obviously, we've got people in the community who are educationists, and they've been working, homeschooling, et cetera, but you can only homeschool for so long. You know, we need an institution that has been professionally vetted and put together by professionals, where we'll have an alternative. There are many other communities that have got their own schools, their own banks. You know, representation within the you know, politics, or, you know, within what we look at as government and so forth. They have someone who's there to represent them. Where's ours?
Absolutely.
We've got to make sure we cover every facet when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to education, when it comes to banking, when it comes to everything we need as a community. Because when people say that, community, what does a community mean?
It's quite vacuous, the way that it's delivered. And we know that respectively, before we met, we've dedicated our time to meeting those people. And we know that the level that they were working at. Kay Johnston is a headmistress who was going for a free school license, who created the Diamond Enterprise curriculum. That's an entrepreneurial curriculum that we have. So when members of our community plug into that, and you look at programs like Origin, HQ, Rites of Passage, WYLA, Manhood, and
Academy,
all of
yep.
these other organizations, including your own. How powerful and robust does that make an educational base that we can then deliver as a turnkey in every borough that we've got a stronghold?
This is the thing. We've got everything within our community that we need.
And everyone.
And everyone. The challenge now is to organize it in such a way that we bring in all of these people and skills
Yes.
sets together in a very structured and professional way.
Yeah.
And I think this is the next level. Obviously, we keep talking about finances. Finances are not really even a problem once we are organized and working together.
Then no community is more innovative than us.
That's right.
They're just better organized.
Absolutely.
And the rhetoric that we'll frequently hear is Stamford Hill, Stamford Hill, Stamford Hill. When what happened in the Second World War happened to the Yiddish community, there were already structures, they were already in every country that they were in, marginalized as a community. There is a day where a set of people who are qualified say, this cannot run anymore. We have been at that day, but now there is no excuse. You got project management tools like Podio, where 100 people, a team of 1,000 can plug in with different permission sets to be running projects in real time, communicating with each other, sharing all information and tools. So we've got no excuse.
We have no excuse.
We've got the digital tools, we've got the expertise, we have the will, we have the black print, even as we go down to the various professors, even Powernomics as a black print, just to execute off the back of that gives us everything we need. So now it's the economics. It's the one, and it's not that we don't have it as a community, because the minute that the hair shops open, we'll know the power of our economics. And the owners of those hair shops will know the power of our economics within the hour that they open the doors.
That's right.
It's our organizational skills to take in. So, for instance, donating £3 by text. It's such a nominal sum that is such a low entry point in terms of physical time, in terms of will. It's not anything anybody would miss. And if 100,000 people did that in one day, we would have started the journey to creating our own self-determination.
Absolutely. The thing is, as you said, we're going to deal with the media flaw of Claude Anderson's model, because the media is one of the things that is holding us back right now. So when we look at Tom Moore, he had the BBC and all of these major mainstream media pushing and promoting what he was doing. And that basically means that they could reach 1 million people like that.
Immediately.
Most of us use social media or maybe WhatsApp groups. But when you do the maths on these groups, on average, most of the groups are around about 100 to 200 people. And most people are in several groups. So if I took myself, for example, I may be on 10 groups. Let's say 10 groups with 200 people. That's only 2,000 people.
Absolutely.
But obviously, with the exponential nature of sharing, if I have access to 2,000 people, and you have access to 2,000 people, and others have access to 2,000 people, then we're going to reach a large number of people. But it's still not enough. We need to get all the media people within our community behind the program so that we can reach more people. The other point is that although we have all the skills and everything, we have to remember that there's been a concentrated effort in suppressing us as a people. So the doors are not open for us when we go for the bank loans or when we go into the system that is already in place, financial institutions, to ask for economic help to basically take the things we're doing proficiently to a higher level. So we have to think, what is stopping us? Most of it is mental.
It's all mental.
Yeah, it's the mindset. So we have to reprogram our mentality and our brain. And we can do this because we've been designed that way.
Yeah.
You know, because you've got neurogenesis, which is basically every cell within your brain can be reprogrammed.
Yes.
So as much of the junk we have been programmed with, we have to learn to unravel that
Yes.
so that we can start thinking properly, so that we don't have these issues of, I don't trust you, I can't do business with you because of this and that. We've got to be able to put those, not saying trust is not important, but sometimes it becomes an obstacle when
it's a big
we're trying
obstacle.
to come together and do things. Yeah. So the reprogramming is also very important when we're trying to move forward.
And it's also aligned with the caliber of what most amongst us may see on a day-to-day basis, not realizing that there are professionals in every single bank at the highest echelons,
Right.
every single school at the highest echelons, every single hospital, quango, town hall, every government at the highest echelons.
That's right.
So when you're aware of that, it's never a challenge. And then all we do, as you've already done, is create the transparent tools so that we can see what is being raised in real time.
Absolutely.
And then there shouldn't be a question. But there is a psychological mind state of black not being good enough. And we do know that that starts from school. There are two messages heard when we go to school. So you could be in assembly and your teacher is talking about ethnic minorities and that statues don't matter, whilst the statues and the pictures are all around the school.
That's right.
So two completely different messages are being heard. Two completely different value sets are being gained within that. Now, somebody's being empowered and someone's receiving misinformation about who they are as a minority who doesn't quite reach the bar, who should try a little harder, where their ambitions and aspirations aren't as realistic, when in reality, we've seen the great ones come. And we don't really need to look any further than our own families, where everybody has in their family someone who's a professional, someone who's doing well, and then we just need to make it more local. So we need to call on our influencers because they cut out half the battle. We've got people with 100,000 followers. We've got people within our community that we can touch, that we're not separated from by more than 1 degree.
That's right.
And all we need to do is create a cohesive program where the entertainment is set out so that if we have a marathon like Children in Need, we know that all of those entertainers that are saying exactly the same thing, all of those influencers, all of those who are very well known in the community come forward onto one platform. That million is just the first floor of what we need to do, which is absolutely nothing in the scheme of things.
Like you said, the narrative that has been pushed and perpetrated is that they don't mention the people that are in those very top high positions.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've worked in corporate industry myself for many years, and you know, you see at the very top, there may be one or two of, you know, people of color or black people as they like to refer to us, but those are genuinely and most of the time the ones who are contributing the most. Even if we look at patents in terms of technological developments, but this is the story that's not heard. The boys that are graduating with, you know, first-class degrees, but you hear about the stabbings and the killings, and you know, you hear that because who's controlling the media? So this is why we have to take control of our own narrative in terms of what we're putting out there, because you're right, we have got professionals at the very highest levels. The thing then becomes this other disease called fear.
Yes.
Because often people who are in very prominent positions who have made it to that level
Have a lot to lose.
have a lot to lose. And they feel that, well, I'm okay, I'm up here, the sun's up here, it looks nice. And I think whether they do it intentionally or unintentionally is that they forget what basically matters, which is you on your own.
Yeah.
Up there by yourself will not have the same amount of influence or power
Absolutely.
giving back and helping and working with the rest of the community. So what I'm saying is, don't be afraid, don't fear, because if we have everything within our community, we can rebuild, and you can utilize those same skills. And in fact, when you're working for somebody, whether you're a CEO or a director or whatever, you know that for you to be earning a certain amount, it's never going to be as much as the person who owns or controls that organization.
Absolutely.
So why not own your own and control your own?
This is a time for mechanics to come together and actually execute. And if we think in the way that societies think, the job is to work your way up to HR, hire your own, and before you know it, the organization comes to represent your mind's eye.
That's right.
Now, when you understand that from the outset, you get to building in isolating ourselves, because we start with that basic premise of I'm not enough. When they tell you you're the special one,
Yeah.
you believe that. And you work your way up to a room where if you're attacked, you don't have any peers to actually defend your case.
That's right.
Without naming any names, we've seen it in entertainment, we've seen it in sports, we've seen it in business, where you are now isolated as number one, the excellent one, Neo, who doesn't really exist. And then they come for you.
Right.
And it's always economic. So they start by suing you. And then that economic term turns into a criminal term, where they go into everything.
That's right.
And irrespective of guilt or not, based on the powers of the law, you can have a custodial sentence. So it just doesn't make any sense when we look at the history of it. So because we are coming to the end of the show,
Right.
and we want to sum up, I just want to touch on the numbers.
Already?
To
Wow,
put
that
it
time went
practically.
very quickly.
It goes very quickly. So we are looking at 220K for economics, which is the backbone of everything. Then 235 for the justice system, which we are proliferated through on both sides of the coin.
Absolutely.
So in terms of service providers and in terms of being on a short-term or long-term holiday.
Yeah.
The health industry, 190K, media, 175, and education, 180K. So just talk to us a little bit about the structures that will go into each of those.
Again, those are very broad figures.
Of course.
Just to give people an indication, an idea of how we've allocated the funds. But however, when we look at health, for example, there's so many different aspects to that. So again, the health professionals will be the ones that are putting the policies together in how we actually move forward with that budget. Because you've got obviously natural health remedies, as well as the more traditional methods. So
the recently traditional methods within the last 100 years.
Absolutely. So a lot of what we know from people like Dr. Sebi and certain people is that when you look at health, a lot of that actually goes back into what we're putting and ingesting into our bodies.
Absolutely.
So it's about starting to think smartly. And going back to the comment you made about the mechanics, for example, I mean, if I'm a mechanic, I'm a specialist in cars.
Yes.
I'm not going to try and be a dentist.
No.
So it's about realizing that we've got potential within our community, and let those that are specialists in those fields. So the health sector professionals will get together, and we would, obviously, as we said, put someone or a team of people.
And to be
in a
frank, they're
project.
already there.
They're already there.
Yeah.
It's just connecting them. And we do our own vetting and make sure that whoever's, like if you look at what they're doing on the news every day, when the Prime Minister comes, he brings his health minister and he brings the financial.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so they're the specialists in those areas, and they'll talk about the budgets and how the money's going to be distributed and so on. So that is the figures you see on there is again, as I keep saying, is just the first step.
Yeah.
But once we get into the motion, once we have the funds in place, we can actually then decide how best to move forward with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's not going to be easy.
No.
This, like you said, we're coming to the end. This journey has been both inspiring, but at the same time, it's a rough and rugged road.
It's eye-opening.
It's a rough and rugged road, and now we're hopefully starting to prick the ears of the professionals, because everybody's contribution is valuable.
Absolutely.
But however, we need to start getting the professionals and people that they get the message. It's very important that people get the message. It's not about the £1 million.
No.
£1 million is just
It's about the expertise and proficiency to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah, as you say, in project management, the key thing is delivery.
Yeah.
Are you able to deliver at the end of it?
Well, this is now LinkedIn as opposed to WhatsApp and Facebook. And when we talk about the doubt that we have in our community is a doubt of proficiency, possibly based on some of our own lack of experience. But when we're talking about a trust level for people, number one, nobody's getting any money. And their track record is based on their accomplishments. So we can see very clearly when somebody comes to you what their accomplishments are and what their track record for accomplishing in their field is. So this is where we erase the fear, the invented fears that we have as a community, because we deal with accomplished people who have track records that speak for themselves. And then they're joining a professional board. So when that board of health experts sit together, just like anybody else, they're now building out models for delivery based on our need. And it's that simple. It's a conversation that shifts very quickly from LinkedIn and dealing with professionals, where we jump away from the ideas of conflation and argument and fantasies. So this is the realms that we're leading into. So the challenges are known within our community, and the solutions are being displayed on the NASHAT website, which is nashat.co.uk. Now the challenge is 1MC, and I just want to ask one favor. Let's position the hashtag 1MC to everything that we're sending out talking about economics. There was a time that we'd say powernomics, and everything was powernomics. Let everything be that we tweet, that we put on Facebook, that we put on LinkedIn, have hashtag 1MC, the 1 million challenge. The 1 million challenge created to deliver our self-determination as a community, to deliver us from a shameful position that we're currently in, and to be frank, is shameful based on the expertise and the experience that our community cumulatively have, to putting the infrastructures in place that can deliver exactly what we deserve within our lifetime, and our children definitely deserve when we come out of this lockup. Thanks for joining us. Thanks MediaNet for hosting us, and Dr. Jude for coming down and giving us the information.
I just want to thank everyone who has been donating. We get donations every day, so that's fantastic. I want to thank everybody who's getting it. On average, most people are donating £5, £10, and even more people have donated £100. So although the minimal is £1, you know, anything
there's no ceiling.
There's no ceiling. But I want to just thank everybody. I want to thank you, and I want to thank MediaNet, because this is part of what we need in terms of the media to get the word out there. So I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for your time.